Hey, I'm Shy Fox, and today we're going to be drawing Bulbasaur. We're going to be doing this tutorial in Clip Studio Paint. If you don't use this program or using another one, or maybe you're drawing on paper, no worries, you can still follow along and modify it for yourself. I'm going to be taking you through this drawing step by step so that you can follow along and do what I'm doing, so it'll be in real time. I should note that this version of Bulbasaur is going to be a bit stylized, so it's not true to the original Pokemon Bulbasaur design. It's going to be a little bit modified to be cuter, more chibi-like. Feel free to pause at any time to catch up and draw, and I would also appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to help me make more videos like this one. Let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set up a canvas. I set mine up to be about 10 inches by 10 inches, which is fairly big, and a resolution of 300. That's what I did. We're going to start drawing the face. So I'm going to do kind of a wide oval here. Go around a few times, because usually when we draw kind of circles and ovals, they look kind of wonky the first time we do them. So if you just go around a few times, it really helps you get a general and better idea of what shape you're trying to do. And then from here, I just turn down the opacity. We got the opacity slider. I just turn it down. I pretty much do this for almost everything I do that has like a face. And then I'm going to make a new layer. And from this, that's my guideline. I'm going to be able to draw the head. So this is going to be the head. Got these kind of rounded triangular ears that Bulbasaur has, one for each side. And then we're going to draw in the sides of his head. It kind of comes down. It's not like he has an oval shaped head. It's kind of rounded, so kind of a shape like that, and then we'll connect it to the other side. And you can even adjust your sketch a little bit if you like. So this is kind of a useful tip. I just selected an area lasso tool, and then I used distort. You can find that under edit, transform, distort. Mine's set to a hotkey, so when I select, I can just quickly move if I want to, get it to the shape I want. So that is something you can do throughout sketching. I do it all the time. And you can even use it to change the angles of your other shapes. So I'm actually going to angle the ears a little bit wider. And I'm going to make the whole head just a little bit narrower. So this shape I feel pretty good about, and I'm gonna delete the oval layer behind. And on a new layer, I'm gonna start drawing the eyes. The reason for the new layer is in case I wanna make changes to it, and that's more easily done if it's separate. So we're gonna draw a shape that kind of looks like this to start with. And it rounds out at each corner. And I'm gonna pull it down. We're gonna add the iris. And then the eye highlight, which gives a sense of where the pupil is. And then the other eye highlight that goes here, it's gonna be a little white bubble by the time we get to the coloring. And then I like to add a little line here. It's kind of a style. And I'm going to make my life easy and your life easy, and we're just going to copy the layer, paste it, and flip it around. In this case, these eyes will work if we copy paste. Now, to make them work together, we're going to have to make some adjustments. I'm realizing my eyes are too big for the face, so I'm going to have to go back and resize. Make sure your eyes aren't too high up on the head. Bring them down. About there. We're gonna add little nose lines. These are easy. Just two little nostrils, and the mouth shape kind of goes like this. So you can draw this first. But Bulbasaur has a little point to his mouth, so we're just gonna add that in there. A little mouth point, and have it curve up on the sides. And his mouth is pretty wide, so you can make it wider if you want to. And you can even add little teeth, cute little teeth poking out I'm gonna do that. Now I'm just going back and fixing my ears because I felt like they were too cat-like and pointy. I'd rather see them stick out to the side a little bit more. So sometimes as you're drawing, and I do this too, we'll find things that kind of need fixing up. So ears are kind of important for their shape. So we're gonna fix that and make sure they feel a little bit pointed, not too rounded. Sometimes I like to add in sort of a shadow for certain areas of the sketch, and one of the places I'm going to do that is just right where the eye is. I'm actually going to maybe lasso it and airbrush it in. Just kind of helps me visualize what it's going to look like, and eyes are super important, so I'm trying to better visualize eventually what that's going to be. That looks better. And I'm kind of just going over areas of my sketch to work on them, refine their shape, to make sure I'm happy with them. You can go back and like erase and sort of redraw if you think it's helpful, but to some degree it's also just a good idea to keep going and not get super hung up on, like, if the mouth isn't perfect, for example, just kind of keep going. I'm gonna merge everything for now and take my own advice and keep going. We can make adjustments as we go if needed. And I'm gonna add the little shapes that Bulbasaur has. His sort of like scaly texture patterns that are kind of on various parts of his little body. And I'm gonna shift the whole bit of facial features down a touch. You might want to shift him into a better position. I'm gonna shift him down to about there. Now we kind of want to add in his body so we can kind of give ourselves a shape here. If this helps you, you can do this. I sometimes skip doing it this way, but put a little oval here, kind of to the side, like if we were to measure where that goes from the head. He's kind of looking in this direction, so we're gonna have it slightly angling this way and then angling out that way. Okay, you follow? So an oval here would be good. I'm gonna again turn down the opacity and use that as a bit of a placeholder. I'm actually gonna move my oval up a little bit. We're giving him a squat body, so about there, I think. And turn that opacity down if you haven't. And we're gonna draw in where his legs are gonna go, his body and his legs. So you can start on this side, give him a little leg, kind of in this shape, kind of curves around, and then kind of a flat but still rounded feel. That's kind of a style that we're going for, is things are kind of flat but they have rounded edges, so a bit of a shape like that. And then we're gonna make this go straight across, meet his other leg, which is gonna go like this, similar shape. Probably want to make sure these are even so that he's like standing evenly on the ground. So he's not quite doing that. So I'm gonna shift my lines, lasso, transform. I'm gonna draw sort of the backside of his body. It's gonna come around, doesn't have to follow the oval perfectly. The oval was just a guideline for ourselves to kind of get a feel of where things are gonna go. But I'm gonna just kind of put my backside line in like this, and this is going to turn into his other back leg that we can see. Same sort of shape again, and we'll have these connect like that. So you can see he's not quite like a real Bulbasaur, he's kind of got a squat body. This is on purpose. It's for the style, and part of our style, we know that Bulbasaur has little claws, so we're gonna add in little rounded claws. If you'd rather make yours pointy, you can. And I'm gonna get rid of that oval shape layer since that was on a separate layer. If you accidentally put it on the same layer as you were already sketching on, just kind of erase around. But we're gonna delete that. So we have the body on one layer, the head on one layer. This just helps me make tweaks to it. Like if we wanted to change the size of the body, maybe you're looking at mine and you're like, whoa, I drew his little body like so small. You can transform it, or the opposite. Maybe you need to make it bigger. Up to you. This is a good opportunity to shift it around. I'm actually going to shift mine slightly to the right. And I'm going to erase where the head meets the body. And I'm only going to have a little bit of line overlap with that. Just a little. Next step is to draw the bulb that makes Bulbasaur. So the bulb, start midway down his backside and little bulb further away from his ear. Give some space to yourself. And it does this kind of curve in, curve out, an S shape really. So when you're sketching, just kind of make sketchy marks so you can kind of find where things go. Feel it out, undo if you need to, redraw. And again, you might feel it's necessary to drag around to where you want this to be. Flip test is also a good idea to check your work, see how it's going. So I'm just gonna flip right now and kind of pick up on some mistakes that maybe we're making. All right, so I've got the bulb in a good place, and I'm gonna add the little shapes again to his body. Just a couple here and there. Kind of irregular, they're not like totally round, but kind of irregular rectangle, triangle shapes. One final thing before we move on to lining is we're gonna add some background elements. So I thought it would look nice to add some leaves. So you can go ahead and add leaves, maybe a little grass like that, just something really simple on either side. And I'm also going to give him a little bit of an oval to stand on. So he kind of has a place where he holds space. Okay, our sketch is looking done. Let's go ahead and line. So the next thing you're going to need to do to get ready for lining, I'm going to merge all my layers together so my sketch is all on one. That helps me. And I'm going to make a folder, and this part's important. I'm going to make a vector layer. A vector layer, if you don't know what that is, instead of a regular layer like that, a vector layer is the cube button where it says new vector layer instead of new raster layer. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. Let me move this up. New raster layer versus new vector layer. Okay, so right here. So from here, we're going to turn down the opacity of our sketch. We just kind of want to fade it out so that we can draw right over top of it. Now I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to grab black, pen tool, pick a size that works for your drawing. I like to err on the side of caution and draw thinner. It's easier to make lines go thicker to thinner instead of thinner to thicker if you're going to make adjustments. But that's the beautiful thing about vector lines, is we can adjust that after the fact. So I'm going to pick a fairly thin pen brush for now. And we're literally just going to line the whole thing. So you can go ahead and line yours. Now some tips for you to make your line art smoother and cleaner. I would recommend you take a look at your stabilizer and put it up to full. That stabilizes your lines. The default in the program is 15, but it's actually a percentage. You can override it by typing in another number. Mine is currently set to 40. So what that does is instead of like at 15, your lines are able to be pretty shaky. At 40, it stabilizes them a lot more, slows it down. And at 100, if you do that same motion, it would really slow you down. I can barely keep up. So really good for those slow and steady lines. So I'm going to put mine at 40. Another awesome tool to use that is a benefit of using vector, and these don't work on regular raster layers, that's why I told you to make a vector layer, is using the vector erase tool. So if you go into the eraser, there's something called vector erase, and it'll let you erase where intersections happen, like that. So it's so much easier, take note, to just erase, and it erases the whole section where the intersection of the lines is. Settings for how I've got that to work are here. That'll just help you speed things up as well. I'm actually going to do the background layer lines on a separate layer just in case I want to make adjustments to them. So I've got Bulbasaur all on one layer, and I'm going to go ahead and add the line work. Again, vector for the background all on its own layer. Another trick is if you're trying to get like a perfect shape of something, like let's say a perfectly shaped oval, then you can find your way to some of these line tools here. You can make straight lines, curved lines, all of these, and find the ellipse. You can drag it out. If you press shift, it becomes a circle, but drag it and click. And because I'm terrible at guessing where it goes, I'm gonna just increase the thickness of it. And move it, drag it, transform it to get it right where I want it to be. So I'm gonna go with that, and then I'm gonna erase the overlapped areas like that. So our line work is done. We can turn off the sketch layer. We can even delete it if we want to. And we're gonna move on to coloring. So a really important step to get ready for coloring is setting our line work folder, which now contains 3 layers of vector. I've got this one all on its own. Oops, I missed a spot. Erase that. We got that circle, oval, sorry, and we've got the background and Bulbasaur, of course. So those are inside of this folder, and we're gonna hit the button that says set as reference layer, a little lighthouse. The whole folder is the reference layer, and the reference layer is the reference for what we're gonna use the fill bucket tool to fill in. The reference layer tells the fill bucket tool what to fill in. So go to fill bucket, refer only to editing layer. This is important. Here's my settings for what I have. If you're finding it's not working for you, just maybe copy my settings. And the first color we're gonna grab is kind of a minty, bluey pastel color. And we've got our fill bucket tool, and we click the empty space. And that was pretty easy. And I'm going to go ahead and fill the empty space on a few sections. Areas of white, like the eyes. Eye color is a bit of a red-orange. I'm going to make a separate layer for the highlights of the eyes. They can go all together. And we'll do more detailed shading. We're just putting in our flat coloring. Flat coloring meaning no shadows. And then we want our darker green color for Bulbasaur. And a darker green for the bulb. And a bit of a turquoisey blue-green for the little spots on his body. I'm gonna go back to one of the white layers and add for his teeth. And fill in his little nostrils. I'm gonna fill them in black, actually. There we go. And I'm gonna leave the background for now. We'll come back to that. At this point, the drawing looks kind of basic, so it's really up to our strategies for shading that's gonna make this come to life and look really cute. So let's start with the eyes. We go to the layer that has the whites of the eyes, this one here. I am going to hit the button that says lock transparent pixels, pick a gray, and this is kind of going to give shadow to the eye. So some shadow there. It kind of curves around. And we'll do the same thing, lock transparency on the orange layer of the eyes. And we're gonna do the same thing so they kind of match up. And clipping layers might be useful to you. I'm gonna clip a layer to our orange red iris layer. I'm gonna take a warm orangey yellow and add a circle to the lower part of his eye. And I'm gonna take that same orangey yellow and kind of airbrush in sort of at the bottom so that he's fading his eye color from this like red into this warmer color. And we can add some cute little details in the eyes with just some dots on either side. We're gonna find the layer with our highlighted highlights of the eyes. And I'm gonna also click that lock transparency. I'm gonna take that same gray that I used for this part of the eye, and I'm gonna follow that same shadow line. Don't want to miss that part. We're going to move on from the eyes and find our layer that has our body on it, and we're going to clip to it a layer, clip it. I'm going to eyedropper the color that we had and pick a slightly darker version of that so that we can shade with it. And I'm going to start adding shadows. This is a good shadow to add right below the chin. You kind of add this shape here. Kind of gives some differentiation between the chin and the body. So if you just want to copy where I'm putting shadows, you can. I sort of kind of went across the bottom and added this whole like thick section of shadow, and now I'm just kind of adding in the areas where the legs kind of meet. Some extra shadow. Here's a fun little trick. It's kind of a style choice. I like to do this in my work, but what you can do is erase along edges where your shadows meet the blank spaces next to it. We're erasing along where the line art meets the shadows. And so we wouldn't erase anything here. There's nothing to erase, but there is on this edge. I'm gonna add a layer. This layer is gonna go actually below the shadow layer and kind of in between. So add that on. And the purpose of this layer, I'm gonna eyedropper our lighter green color that we use for his body. Purpose of this layer is to brighten him up a bit. I'm going to pick a slightly lighter version of the same color, and I'm actually gonna take it more into the yellows. And the airbrush is, I'm gonna use the airbrush and kind of color from the middle of his face. Now the color I picked is probably too yellow, so I'm gonna back it up. Just kind of brighten the middle of his face. Sometimes the tip of the ears looks good, and down here. You can see the difference before and after. Kind of just gives a little extra dimension. The other way to go about it would be, I'm just gonna add another layer under there, is to take a darker color and kind of add it in on the sides instead of the middle. So that looks good too. I'm gonna keep that, but these steps are kind of optional. We don't have to have them. This just adds some gradients for a little more depth of shadow and highlight, so that can look kind of good. I'm gonna do the bulb next for shading. So new layer, clip, eyedropper that green, come up with a bit of a darker green, and we're gonna shade these sections. Now these shapes are rather big, and to make my life easier, I use the selection tool. So the wand tool, click the section you want to specifically focus on and only draw within, and just draw within it. So that can be really helpful. I am using, when I select, I am using these settings, selection for referred layers, that one, and then these are my settings here if you want to try and copy. And I'm going to add a layer and do the airbrush strategy again, where I kind of lighten it up from the top of the bulb, just at the top, I think. You can even add gradients to your shadows themselves. So if I decided I wanted to take this shadow layer, we're gonna lock transparency. We can take the same green, we can make it darker and airbrush just the parts that we want from the shaded areas and not interfere with the rest. And we can do the opposite and kind of lighten it up the top if we want to. That's a really good strategy too. That looks pretty good. We almost forgot about his toes, so we're gonna add a layer of white for his little toes. Just fill that in, that's all we're gonna do. Now I am gonna mess with the lines a little bit. I'm gonna find my way back to the line work layer of just Bulbasaur, and I'm gonna make a copy of it. So you can copy it, you can literally go layer, duplicate layer if you need to. I've got a hotkey for mine. And I'm going to pull it underneath our color layer. So these are our color folder, I should say. These are our colors. It's going to go underneath. And the reason for that is I'm going to find our object tool where we have object free transformation. That's the one we're looking for. And I'm going to increase the thickness of the lines where it says brush size. We can actually really adjust this as much as we wanted. So again, object tool, object free transform, and how thick do we want to go? About there. That kind of makes him feel like he pops a little bit, maybe a little thicker. Kind of pops now. And for the colors of the rest of like the background and the leaves, I'm just gonna pick some random leaf colors and just paint those in. That looks good. And you can choose what color you want him to stand on. I'm gonna make him stand on this like gray-green color. You could also try like a warmer green if you want it. Warmer green, I guess that's probably not the phrase. A more saturated green, that would be the way to word that. What I'm gonna do is actually change the color of the lines for the leaves that we've got to the same color as what they actually are. So I'm actually gonna color pick. So the way I do this is, if you didn't see that, again, we're using object free transform. We have selected the layer with the leaves lines on them. So object free transform, there's main color, and you can eyedropper this to make it the same color. And I'm actually going to do the same thing with my oval that he's standing on. Let's do that. And now's a good time to pick a background color. I'm actually going to drag the layer that Bulbasaur is on top. So he's on top, okay. And we just kind of need a background color. Now we've done it on this like square canvas. We might want to crop it in a little bit. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And then we just need a background color. And if you want to get fancy, I just add a little gradient of light at the top using our airbrush. And I'm looking at it now and I want to make some final tweaks. Sometimes I like to correct line widths. So on the Bulbasaur line work layer, I'm going to find the correct line width tool. And I'm going to thicken or narrow various sections. So I'm looking at the eyes right now and I'm thinking I'd really like to thicken the upper part of the eye. So it would just look nicer, I think, if that was thicker. That helps. So if you see any lines that are like, oh, I wish that was thinner, I wish that was thicker. For example, maybe this part narrower. You could go back and do that. Now, if you want to share this image on Instagram, you can use the hashtag draw along with ShyFox2, as this is the second draw along that we've done, and post it on there so that I can see it. If you tag me in it, it'll help me, and then I can share it on my story. So I might even do that as well. Let me know if you'd like to see more draw alongs like this one, and you can comment if you want to let me know what other characters you think I should do for a draw along. You can also check me out on social medias like Instagram, Twitter. I live stream artwork on Twitch. You can ask me questions on there, and you can also join our community Discord. Links for these things will also be in the description, so you can check those out. Hope this was fun for you guys. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye guys. Perfect oboe. Oboe.